Welcome to Pixel Pushers Podcast. We are two NPCs in the animation and gaming industry, here to talk shop, push pixels, and level up together. Join us on this creative journey.
So we've started this podcast about 3 times, not 4 times, 4 times.
Yeah.
My co-host here has given me a hard time, and I'm losing my approval. I need approval here. It's very important. I need this approval.
Yeah.
And you're not giving me this approval.
I'm not giving you the okay how this is
You're
going.
not giving me the okay that I'm doing a good job.
Yeah,
You
I'm
keep
so sorry.
criticizing me. You keep telling me I'm too much like a robot.
Yeah. You know, nobody's gonna want to listen to this at all if we go too crazy. No,
Too
not
crazy.
crazy enough.
But
No.
I need to sound like a robot.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you today?
Yeah. No, how are
Doesn't
you
work.
today? I mean, obviously, this is like the first time we're doing this.
Second time.
Second time, yes, that's true. I mean, there's so much to talk about here.
Yes.
But you know what? Approval is something we actually need to talk about. I feel like sometimes at work, I see a lot of warning signs for a lot of new people that's in the industry. And you can really see what's happening, but it's really hard topic to them. And that's the
Oh, you mean
approval
like
mentality.
what do you mean like a hard topic? Like you're talking about like them trying to get the approval or not understanding what the approval looks like? Is that or both actually?
Yeah, I think
Now that I think about it,
I
yeah.
think it's both because
Yeah.
they wanted upper management, basically their boss, their leads, to praise them, but they're looking for it too often. And even though some of it is not even something to be praised, because for people who's in this industry for a long time, it's like that's your job, that's your task. Like you don't get praise for just finishing it, right? So it's a very interesting thing to see. I mean, it could be also age related, I guess.
Well, actually, you're right about that. There's definitely an age-related element to this. Because if you actually think about it, our parents, like how many times have we heard, like for example, we have our age approval issues
Yeah.
when we go to work or from our parents. But then how many times have we heard from our parents, oh, just do whatever they ask you. Oh, that's your boss. Don't do that.
Oh, that's
Or
so true.
put your head down and, just do your job. Like don't stop creating waves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that comes from their mentality versus how they were working, how the industry, doesn't matter which industry actually, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true.
But how they were kind of functioning when they started.
For all of them. Well, okay, tell me
Yeah.
if this is your parents, right? So my
Yeah,
parents
yeah.
are in their, retired. They're in their 60s, going to 70s. And the way they look at everything, and even when they give me advice about going to work, it would be make sure you do everything they say. It's okay to do overtime. Show
Yeah.
them that you're keen to
It's
do
true.
things. Don't
Yes.
say no to anything. Always do everything. The more you do, the better it is.
Yeah, stay late.
Yeah, stay late.
Those
That way you
ghost
get-
hours, just keep doing.
Yeah, that way you get
know?
approval. That
Yep,
way they
yep.
know you're a good person. They know you're a good worker. And then you'll be able to keep your job, basically.
Actually, my parents didn't say this, but
Okay.
I had a family friend who are the same age as my parents.
Okay.
They told me that they tell their children to never become leads or supervisors.
Really?
And I was like, what?
Why?
Well, because the thing is, because they don't want them to overwork. They don't want too much work, too much effort. The
Oh, Interesting.
idea is you stay in your lane, you put your head down, and you just do your work. End of discussion,
Wow.
kind of thing. And it's kind of scary to think like that because, I mean, I became a lead and a supervisor. I've done both roles,
Yeah.
and you've been a lead yourself. And so I think I'll be honest with you, I enjoy it. The only thing I don't enjoy is what do we call it? Game of Thrones, It's like
It's true.
playing that clever 4D chess. It's like, what are we going to do
Yeah.
now? I sometimes play checkers, not chess. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's a whole different topic.
Well, it's like the whole issue of having to go into bureaucracy when you
Yes.
need to, right?
Exactly, exactly.
That becomes very difficult once you get up to the lead position, the manager position. And I mean, going back to that, being a lead, kind of you're in the middle. So you have people that you look after, which looks up to you to
Yes.
solve their problems. And then
Yep.
also the people that are above you that you have to answer to them. But you have to also try really hard to solve their problems. That's also like I guess like for leads even then, that's like a approval mentality, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. I was actually looking for your approvals,
Mm.
right? Because if I'm doing my job correctly as a lead or a supervisor, and if my team is happy, I've then accomplished my task and I feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is example of a good approval in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because approval is necessary. We all are looking for that
Yeah.
that little bit of like, you're doing a good job,
Yeah.
keep going,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Because if we don't get that in our lives, it becomes we're kind of just zombies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's sad to say this, but if you look at our parents, to some degree, they were kind of, I know I'm like brushing the whole generation here, but there was that level of like, you go to work, you're gonna do your job,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna give it 100%,
Yeah.
and then after work, yeah, you went out with your coworkers, you had you went for drinks, you partied a little bit, and you came home. But
Mm-hmm.
your goal was always to accomplish your task, and that was the approval that you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
That was their approval process.
Yeah.
And I think for us, I think for our generations,
Mm.
I would say our approval, or from what I saw, was definitely our parents' approval. That was one, because we wanted to show them that we can do what they did, that they accomplished a great life. They were able to buy houses. They were able to
Yeah.
purchase a car,
It's
all
the
that kind of stuff.
external
Mhm.
material basically is like, okay, I
External
make enough
material.
to buy a car, I make
Yes.
enough to buy a house. Okay, now
Exactly,
everything's kind of
exactly.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we were looking for that approval. And then I think from a work standpoint, we kind of brought that kind of approval into our work, where I remember when I started, I was actually looking at my supervisors and my bosses at the time, where I'm like, I need to get this person's approval. I need to get this boss's approval. Am I doing a good job?
Mm.
But the reality was, I had to remind myself later on, much later on, don't get me wrong, it took me like
Mhm.
3 years,
Yeah.
that I was smarter than some of the people that quote unquote were leads and supervisors. I'm like, they couldn't give me the answers I wanted
Mm-hmm.
because our jobs had changed. You see, our jobs were now requiring us to learn new software,
Yeah.
learn new tools, learn all these new extra stuff that everybody above us may not even know or may not even be interested.
Mm-hmm.
So we no longer, so trying to get their approval didn't make any sense, right? So I learned that quite early on, and I think you are in a similar boat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, for sure that everyone is trying to get some kind of approval. And the problem is sometimes when you see that happening, like for example, if you wanted to get someone else's approval, the bad thing is that you end up doing everything for them, basically, even stuff that are
Yes.
not within your job. And I think that's the big warning bell for these kind of approvals.
That's a good one. That's
Yeah.
true, actually. Yeah, because that's a very valid point. Where you end up doing other departments' jobs, other people's jobs,
Mhm.
just to be like, hey, am I a good person? Did I do a good job?
Yeah.
And that I think is every generation. I don't
That's
think
true.
that's a generation specific thing.
Yeah, it's not
Uh,
it's not generation
yeah.
specific. It's with everyone.
Yeah, and I would say though, I don't mind helping people, as long as, this sounds weird, as long as they're a good human being,
Mm.
right? The minute I find someone that's a little bit snakish,
Ah, okay.
I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna help you. So it's like, I know it sounds horrible, like, unless it's part of my job description, then obviously I have to do it. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
for sure.
My deliverable is my deliverable. But if, for example, they're going out of the way to take my stuff and make themselves look good
Yeah.
and say how they're the superstar or whatever they want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
and while I'm sitting on the sidelines just watching this happen, hey, guess what? I'm never going to go out of my way to go above and beyond my job just to help them out or get their approval, you could say.
Yeah.
Right? Because I realize their approval is no longer valid. So that's the key there,
Mm-hmm.
is realizing from who you're trying to get the approval from, and when not to get the approval from.
Yeah, when you don't need one. When you don't
When
need
you
to.
don't need one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think that's a very important factor.
Yes, it's true, because everyone has their own responsibility when you're within the workplace. So after I did my responsibilities, anything extra I do is whatever that I'm happy with. And it has to be something that you're happy with. I feel like
Yeah.
also sometimes when people try to get approval, they're doing a lot of things, but inside they're actually not willing to do it. So I mean, for mental health wise, it's like if you don't want to do it, just have the courage to say no.
Yeah.
You don't have time
Yeah.
or you don't have enough knowledge to do this. Don't just try to do it and then get angry about it yourself, because that's
Yes.
really not good for mental health. I mean,
I've seen that
honestly,
many
I've
times,
actually
yeah.
done this a few times myself,
Yeah.
and I was super frustrated. And in my head, I'm just thinking like, why didn't I say no to this? Why didn't I say I don't know enough about this topic to actually do this? I should have said no, but I didn't, and it's causing me more mental stress now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Actually, that's a very important point. And when I became supervisor, I became responsible for quite a few people. And what you described right there, I realized I didn't want anybody on my team, including yourself, to be in a situation where you are forced to make a decision, yes or no,
Yeah,
and then you're going to regret it later.
yeah,
So one thing, I don't know if you remember this, I told you to use my name as a way
Yeah.
to get out of stuff.
I remember
Meaning, and to buy yourself
this.
time,
Yeah,
right? And I think I still use that to this day, where I'll be like, you know what? I don't know too much about this technical situation or technical problem. Let me get back to you on that.
yeah,
And even though I can't use someone's name, I kind of use it as a way to, one, buy myself more time, and two, essentially do more research on the topic.
yeah,
Because this goes back to being in a meeting or being in a discussion where someone's asked you, "Hey, can you export this from this file to this file?" And suddenly you're stuck there. You're going, what do I do, right?
yeah,
And this just gives you that extra bit of time where you can be more confident. And
yeah,
again, going back to the approval mentality, getting that approval that you need, because if you come back after with all the answers,
Yep.
you feel more confident
That's
in
true.
your decision.
That's true.
Whether yes or no, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, also you do need to buy yourself time, and sometimes you do also,
Definitely.
because in our industry it gets pretty dicey about tasks and who you get tasks from and all your
Yeah.
timelines, right? You have your own priorities, but all the departments are related to each other, so everyone has their own priorities. But it's like if you become the bottleneck, someone else can't work, then you might actually be in a little bit of trouble. So also it's good to buy time to actually talk to production, even getting approval to say if you can actually do this, or if you should leave this till later. Because if it's actually not your job and you're doing it and it's eating into your own time for completing your task, then you get into trouble as well.
And one thing you taught me actually was speaking the right language to the right people, right? So, for example, not everybody is looking for the same information, or trying to. If I'm trying to reach a producer, I'm not going to talk tech, right? And this is what you showed me was, if I'm talking to a producer, I need to give the producer just metrics.
Yep, numbers.
Right? It doesn't make sense for me to go to that producer and start talking about like, oh, I did this export today. My team can publish these shots by the end of the day, blah, blah, blah. They don't care. They just care whether it's going to be done by the end of the week or not.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they need to know how much more time we need, or how much more deliverables we can give them.
Yeah.
And how long we need to do that.
Yeah.
Right? And again, this teeters back and forth within that whole who you're talking to, how you're talking to, and having the respect back and forth will automatically give you that approval you're looking for. Right? Don't chase it. That's the key.
Yeah. Chasing it is usually not a good idea.
No. And that always ends up being a few people I've seen. I'm not going to say their downfall, but their undoing almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They get like talked to, they get yelled at, they get like bad reviews, and they also sometimes they get frustrated, and that is detrimental to their own health and to the process, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. Yeah. Because
And yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, no, you go ahead. I've been talking for a long time.
Oh, I was just thinking that the approval mentality for us, because we've worked enough in the industry, that we kind of don't need that, and it comes with experience. So once you actually work for a long time, you know what you're doing. I find you need that approval less and less. It's like I know in this situation what I should do. So even if I am in a situation where I haven't seen before, like logically, this is what I need to do. Like A, B, C, D, E. I don't need to talk to additional people of like, hey, is this a good idea? Should I do this? Should I do that? Because you know what to do. But for a lot of the newer people in our industry, it's really hard for them because I guess from some examples I've seen, once they get overwhelmed, it's like they don't know where to start and they're trying to get help, but also they can't explain themselves. Like what you said about talking to the people with the right language. So they're stuck. And it really hurts to see that. So like for some people, when I see that, I'll tell them, hey, if you're trying to tell someone that there's too much going on and you can't finish this task within the allotted time, you should tell them, but you should also give them the numbers. Don't say I feel like or I am or whatever, because nobody really cares about how you feel.
No,
in this industry. And it might sound harsh, but that's like, I feel like maybe it also has to do with our generation as well. I just feel like that's not something that people care about. And it could be different for the younger generation. Maybe everyone else is like their friend that, they think everyone cares about their well-being. But sometimes when I look at it at work, I just don't really see that. So it's like, okay, if you're trying to say you can't do this within a lot of time, like don't say I feel, don't say I'm overwhelmed, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like you can say that, but like you have to give a proper reason and maybe even a solution. But when you're just talking about feelings, nobody cares.
No one cares. And, just to add to that a little bit, the other extreme is also bad though. When you become like almost like a robot.
Yeah.
Just recently I discovered that in my previous job, my reputation, I found out what my reputation was, because I just like to give like what the facts are and whether whether I can accomplish it or not. And people took that as if I was being harsh.
Okay.
Right? Or I was being very stern. And I had no idea that was my reputation. So I think you need to find that nice bit of balance where, and this is the one thing I've learned when talking to people. Two things. People love to talk. As you can see, I love to talk. People love to talk and they love to hear their own voice. As long as you keep asking them questions, they will keep talking, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost better to give your point, but then also ask questions relating to those points. To make the conversation feel like it's a conversation than just informative. Right?
Yeah.
So this goes back to what you were saying, where people, if you get too emotional, saying this is how I feel, instead of going this is how I feel, you go, oh, this is the information I have. What would you recommend if I'm in this specific circumstance? How would you say should I change the camera angle, or should I change the length of the shot instead?
Yeah.
Right, to solve this problem. And just having a dialogue changes the whole metrics of the conversation.
That's true.
And you're not giving your emotion, but you're not at the same time being a robot either.
Yeah.
So trying to find that nice balance in these kind of discussion and these meetings goes a long way, I find.
Yeah, that's 100%. Because sometimes even when you're frustrated, if you're talking to the other person, you don't know what situation they're in either, right? Like the chances are, if you're in the same department working and you're facing the same issues, they could be also under the same pressures. So if you have to kind of put yourself in their shoes as well, if they're like always in that kind of pressure and you're just kind of complaining, then it just kind of doubles down on basically the emotional stress that they have to go through.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't want to actually, they want to solve their problem first, and then you're coming up with your problem asking them to solve as well. They get frustrated, and it's like it just compounds onto like all the stress and everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Actually, one example I can give is we worked with a director on a handful of shots where we came fairly late into the production cycle, and we were given the task of helping that director with some camera work.
Yeah.
And if you remember, we heard nightmare stories from other people about that director.
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh my God, it's really difficult to work with this person." And what we found out just by us talking to the director and asking questions wasn't that the director was difficult. It's just that they came from like a film or live action background. So when working on film, when working on animation,
Yep.
they just didn't know the tech.
Right.
And that's all it was. And I think the level of conversation that we ended up having with the director, I would almost say was groundbreaking for the studio to some degree. You know, where we ended up delivering not only what the director was looking for with the camera work, but having a great relationship with that director afterwards.
Yeah. I would even say he was actually a pretty easy person to work with. Yeah.
Exactly. But how many times do we hear, "Oh no, this person's very difficult to work with. They keep asking for too much," or blah, blah, you know?
Yeah.
I heard that so much from so many people, and I'm just like, I don't see it.
That's
But
not
it was
true.
all, it was not true. It was all the way we communicated.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Yeah. Communication, there's a lot of tricks to it. But the key point is to match your language with the person you're talking to. Yeah. So, for example, I guess like what we've been saying, maybe to talk to production about deadlines, you have to give them statistics. Like, this takes X number of hours. You've given me, I don't know, 50 of these tasks. It adds up to X number of hours. And which means it's like, how many full work days is that? Now we have like, how many people on the team doing this? Even if you divide that, you know, you kind of go into those nitty gritty so that they know. And like sometimes actually one thing that people always overlook is the amount of meetings people have in a day. It's like if you're in a meeting, then that work hour is gone as well. Like, you know, you having 3 full days to do something, it's not the same as you having 3 days to do something where you're sitting in their like 5-hour meeting each day.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point, because you're sitting in those meetings. What do they expect you to do? Ghost hours?
Yeah.
To finish the tasks?
Exactly.
I hope not. If they do, that's a problem on the production cycle then.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's a good example of, just backtracking a little bit, what we were talking to the director earlier in our conversation. What we got out of that was an approval that was really based on respect and mutual collaboration. But then trying to get an approval for finishing your task from the production cycle, that to me is a false approval, because they don't care at the end of the day whether they've given you enough time or not enough time to finish your tasks. All they care about whether they've gotten their check mark that the task is done.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, that's how you have to keep your mind sharp and understanding what is the real approval you're looking for, and what is the approval that's just going to deteriorate you physically as well as emotionally. And to me, the production cycle approval is one of the worst things in our industry, because I'll give you an example. Like when I first started, they gave me a handful of shots to scene prep, it's called. And that department is in between layout and animation.
Yep.
And they said, we need we need 30 cinematics ready, or 30 scenes ready after layout and into animation's hands. And I said, okay, that's fine. I'm like, when does layout deliver? And they're like, oh, layout delivers on Friday.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. I'm like, when does animation start? They're like, animation starts on Monday. I'm like, what? I'm like, so when do you expect me to do this? And production really expected me to come on the weekend.
Oh, wow.
But even back then I was smart enough, which I'm very happy about this. I said, okay, how many animators are starting on Monday? And they said 5. I'm like, okay, how about this? I'll prepare 5 shots right now for those 5 animators. And then on Monday, I'll start preparing the rest of the scenes.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, production, I could see the light bulb in the production's eyes. They were just like, oh my God, that's genius. I'm just like, that's not genius. That's just smart work ethics.
Balancing out your time, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So you don't, actually for them, it's also a thing. It's like, if you don't do ghost hours, then they'll have to pay you OT. So this way, they don't have to pay you OT for doing all of those ahead of time for no reason.
Exactly. And if I didn't think like that, I would be trying to get their approval by going, okay, I'm going to come in Saturday and Sunday and finish all these 30 shots so that production's happy with me, animation's happy with me. Reality is, neither party would care. Because all they cared was the 5 shots that they need to start on Monday were ready for them. That's all they would have cared about.
Yeah, I also find that like there's a lot of people in this industry that doesn't know how to compartmentalize. So it's like stress related, right? If you're given like 1,000 things to do, I think that you need to learn how to break it into small pieces and actually go one by one.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point, because you end up with the situation where you become too overwhelmed. And
you can't start anything. Yeah.
You can't start anything. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
And if you get too overwhelmed, you become angry. You become people see this because, again, if you're looking for some form of approval, this looks bad on you. Because then you start beating yourself up because you can't accomplish any tasks.
Yeah. And you get like very agitated too, because like, I mean, this happened to me before when I'm too overwhelmed, and it's like you're trying to do this one thing, trying to start the task, and then you kind of remember, oh, there's this B and the C is over there, and you kind of try to do too many things together at once. Your head is a jumble mess, and then, you know, famous times when this happens, your machine doesn't cooperate, it freezes, it crashes, and you're just like, okay, everything's coming to an end, it's an apocalypse. But it's really not, right? So you gotta kind of know, hey, what's the smallest piece I can chew on right now? And just figure that out and start doing it. Like, say, for example, if you have 100 shots to do, pick the easiest one to do. Finish that one first, so you get that small sense of accomplishment.
That's a good idea.
And then you go on the rest.
Yeah. That's a really clever way. Would you almost say, like, if we go back to 30 shots example, and it's like 20 of the shots are easy, 10 are difficult.
Yeah.
Would you almost break it down by doing like
easiest ones first?
All easy ones first, or would you do like 4 easy, 1 hard? You know, for that day. I
think you start with the easy ones and do it until you feel like, okay, you're in the headspace for our difficult one. Because the minute you're not in the headspace for it, it just doesn't work. And I can say that it's the same for a lot of tasks.
And what would you recommend for someone who feels overwhelmed or already in the overwhelming state? Like, what would be the best advice to, like, do you like back off? Do you like start, would you like talk to your coworkers to be like, hey, listen, or your supervisor or lead, help me break down this? Like, what would you recommend?
Well, okay, here's I guess for people, they have this issue with telling people they're overwhelmed, but then also you want to tell them, but you don't want to make it sound like it's a complaint, it's a nag. Like, you know, it's a whining, basically. You don't want to make people think you're whining to them. Have a solution in mind, right? But like, say, for example, I said it earlier, if there's too many shots to do, break it into statistics and let production know, hey, the deadline you give me doesn't really make sense because, this is ideally how much time you need this. And we also need to account for when stuff doesn't work, when stuff fails. I mean, sometimes when you're dealing with an issue, it could take you half a day. So,
Yeah.
Those times you need to account for in it, and you need to tell production about that. Say, for example, if it's really bad, you're just onboarding to a project and they suddenly throw you like a whole bunch of things to do, which actually happened to me. I had to definitely go to my supervisors and be like, hey, listen, I just got onto this project. I don't know much about anything here. I still need to learn this game engine. So these tasks and this due date is not very possible. What can you do to help me with this? And, talk about solutions, right? Because when you're just saying, oh, I feel overwhelmed, I don't think I can do this, blah, blah, blah. It's just and saying that what you feel. They might not care.
It's true. They might not care. And, this goes back to the other example I gave where it's like, find out what's your deliverable, who you're delivering
Yes,
to.
yeah.
If it's like 3 people, do they really need everything right away? Or will that buy you a little bit of extra time that you have time to finish everything?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So I see what you mean. So you do have to think outside the box a little bit to figure out a few solutions.
Yes.
And then almost like discuss multiple solutions to be like, this is the issue I'm having.
Yeah.
What do you think about these?
Yeah.
And which one do you recommend would be the best course?
I mean, it's also a negotiation. So it's like a trick that I also need to mention to everyone. Like, for example, if they say, hey, you need to get all these 30, 40 shots done, make sure you have something to show. Like, for example, if you're putting in something in the folder to show that you did one shot, make sure you just do it one by one and not like, oh, I put everything in my computer and then I upload it to the network or whatever after I'm done all of them. Don't do that. Make sure you put in one by one just so that people, when they look at it, they know you're trying to do something.
I see. Like what you mentioned before, look through all your shots, decide which ones you can work on right away, submit those shots so there's a visual cue to everybody that is tracking. They know that something's been delivered.
Exactly.
At least. Something minimum at least.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, even if you're blocked, there are stuff that will be not blocked. You do as much as you can. For example, a set is not approved. It's still undergoing changes, but they need the preliminary work. You could still do the preliminary work. Like, if they need screenshots, you put in screenshots. If they need measurements, you give measurements, that kind of thing. Like, just do what you can and leave the blockers on the side and let your superiors production know about those blockers. But always have something to show, is what I mean.
Well, that's cool. That makes sense. Yeah, don't go into panic mode, basically.
Yeah. Because panic mode, you just kind of, sometimes you just, and it's so fast, because I've actually gone into the same situation when I go into panic mode. The whole day gone by and you actually did nothing. It's so weird, but it happens. And you don't want to get into that situation, basically.
And this kind of goes into another thing I wanted to talk about, was that the studio structure is kind of stuck in this assembly line structure.
Can you elaborate that more?
Well, basically, like, they need everybody to be siloed. Siloed in their departments, in their processes. And that's a very old school thinking. That's a very like manufacturing way of thinking where, okay, if you are in layout, you're going to do these many shots, you're going to deliver them. If you need to be replaced, I can replace you easily because you're only going from this delivery to the next delivery.
I see.
Right? There's no collaboration, proper collaboration with the departments and other team members, right? And there's no thinking about optimization either, unless it comes from very high level, you could say, right? So if you start thinking like that, you kind of go into a trap then, because as a studio level, then you end up going, okay, no, I need like, if I need 30 shots to be delivered from layout to animation, and then from animation to VFX, And those 30 shots, and you're not talking to any departments within each other, you end up in a scenario where no one knows whether my layout, my camera work is going to work for the VFX
Yeah.
shots, or whether animation is going to have proper silhouetting for their cameras,
Yeah.
right? And that to me is one of the worst things the industry, to this day, I find they're still doing,
Right.
where they will just not talk to the next department. And I think any studio that's been successful has actually made it so that the communication and optimization flows across every department. And I think one good example was one of the studios that we worked at, and it was so refreshing to see this. We created these model environments,
Yeah.
and those environments, the minute we submitted them, we were able to send them to VFX, to layout, to previs, to animation. And what that did was it allowed every department to see what was coming down the pipe,
Yep.
and also give us back feedback in case they needed something extra from that, right?
It's
And
like creating a circular workflow, basically.
exactly.
Having a extra place to feed back so you can improve it and move it along faster afterwards.
Actually, that reminds me. You remember that Pixar paper we read where
yeah.
they talked about their circular character effects pipeline?
Yeah, yes.
I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, it basically has to do with them having people build the cloth and actually put it into a model and then send it down so that animation can actually work with that and also have a chance to actually simulate it and see if it works for them or not, and then send it back to modeling to fix like the geometry to make sure it works better. Like just having that feedback and going back and forth, you create something that's better in the end, so that basically if you turn on the simulation, it'll work for most movements, as opposed to like, oh, just going one way. You make the character, make the cloth, put in the simulation rig, go into animation, and then like everything goes wrong at the end, and then now you have to go chase it back up, which is like a lot more time consuming when stuff is set, because people are like, oh well, we already did the surfacing for this, what's gonna happen, you know. It's like testing stuff ahead of time, so then you have the chance to change it.
So you're saying the circular process was way ahead of even any shot work.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So it was like you were working on these files, surfacing was working on the same, letting you know whether the tailoring was set up correctly or they needed more geometry for this specific texture.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's like the big studios, they kind of do this in some departments. It just needs to be done for more departments. Like, for example, animation doing calisthenics tests for a rig.
Yeah.
That needs to happen all the time, because they need to see if it works or not, and stuff needs to be added, blend shapes needs to be added. But if you can do that with, like, say, even layout, hey, you know, this is what the blockout's going to be. Is that going to work for whatever you're going to do in these scenes?
Yeah, all the way to VFX and lighting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Way before animation even starts. It'd be like, you know what, this building is creating too much of a shadow. Can we move it like 5 degrees to the left or something, and it'll be perfect?
Yeah.
You know, and I think unfortunately there's still a lot of the assembly process that I've seen in the industry versus the circular mentality. And this goes to our overall topic, where I find that in a more circular pipeline or circular process, you could call it, you end up, you know, we talk about approval, but you end up creating such a great relationship with all the departments that you automatically feel good and you have a sense of accomplishment. Yeah. With the assembly line process, the only accomplishment you have is, did I finish my shot? Did I finish my my 1 or 5 or 10 tasks? And you don't care what happens at the end of the process. Yeah. Right? And that, to me, I think as the generations have gone forward to the current generation, I find that we as a people need more of that. we need more of that communication with the other departments. Communication is like, okay, I'm going to give you this, you let me know if it's going to work or not.
Yeah. 100%.
So that I can modify it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I find that production still doesn't, some production are amazing and they understand this process. But a good chunk of them don't understand that this is how it needs to work. It's not just one or two departments. It's like everybody is going to work in a beautiful flow. Again, in a circular flow that will benefit everybody. And at the end, you're going to get the product, but it's going to be 10 times better.
Yeah. Because look at it this way, right? If you only go one direction, the problems will just keep on growing. Like, for example, some particular situation, like with the studio that we worked at, where the rigs aren't tested thoroughly by animation beforehand, and it goes down into the production. After a while, it's like, okay, animation is like, well, I want to get them into this pose, but it doesn't really work. And it just kind of, that problem kind of just grows. So like in the end, you get to shot finaling, they'll have to be correcting frame by frame. Like, say for example, a shoulder that should have actually been in the rig if they actually did the test properly and it went back to rigging. But if you never want to go back to a previous department, the snowball just rolls bigger downwards.
That's true, actually, and this goes back to what we were talking, where you see passing the buck, right? Just so you feel that, oh, I've done my task, I don't care, I'm going to pass the buck to the next department.
Yeah.
And that also creates resentment.
Oh, for sure.
In the other departments.
Yeah.
Because now you become angry with the previous department. And then you start going, why can't they finish their job? And they can't finish their job because they needed to accomplish their tasks. And all of these, unfortunately, starts building really negative workplaces. And resentment for each other. And then when you try to get that approval or that, respect from other people, there's none.
Yeah, they hate each other, right?
They hate each other.
It's like,
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, a phenomenon that we always see is, for example, lighting and VFX always getting hosed because they're the last departments.
Yeah.
And their time's always shortened to no end. But they have to get stuff out, so they're the ones doing the crazy OTs. And for them, it's entirely fair to be resentful, because it's like, okay, you as production is given that much time to every department, but everyone else gets to delay more. You're at the end. You don't get to delay, so you're hosed and you're angry.
And this kind of situation, to, I guess, of our listeners, is very important, where, let's say you're starting off in the industry, you're going to be in a studio. That's this assembly process. And it's one of the hardest things to change, and if not impossible to change. And this is going to be hard for me to say this, but unfortunately, you can't get approval from anybody from those kind of places. You don't really have... I would say it's very difficult to make even friends in those places, because you need to build a relationship amongst people, but you end up siloing yourself within only your team, right? And those people will become your friends, but you can't expand your friendship circle, you could say, right?
Yeah.
And I find studios don't realize that, especially when young people come into the industry and you put them in these silos, you are actually mentally deteriorating them from giving 120%, 130%, whatever, even 100%, because then you're creating resentment, right? And so the advice sad to say this, the advice I would say is, contact people, talk to people, but don't tell anybody. Just have conversations with other departments. See what they're doing, see how they're doing it, But unfortunately, if you talk to production about it, or a supervisor, they will frown upon that, because they'll be like, how dare you talk to another department? Right? So it's sad to say this. You gotta almost just be like, hey, I'm just go to the parties, right?
Mm.
Uh, Start a conversation going, oh, you're from this department. Hey, how's it going? I'm curious about this process.
Yeah.
Start those conversations up.
Yeah.
And no one can stop you from that. But you don't have to make an announcement about it.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
If you make an announcement saying, oh, I talked to this department and they said this, blah, blah, no one's going to be like, oh, that's amazing. Good job. They're going to resent it. Because if the studio has lived long enough to be an assembly process, they will not appreciate if you go outside that assembly.
Mm.
And that's what you have to remember when trying to make connections and communications with other departments around.
Yeah.
Now, yeah.
I would say
Sorry,
it's
go on.
not always like dangerous or anything, but it's like a landmine situation where you don't actually know. It's like you step on it and you don't know if it's going to explode or not.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I got in so much trouble. So much trouble.
I've actually had like
Yeah.
really great conversations, like for example, in the gaming industry where I'm not sure, like, hey, how does your audio process work? I don't really have visibility. I don't understand like what your process is, and like they were happy to explain it to me. But the problem is, yeah, like you said, if you take whatever they told you for granted and then you tell your department about, hey, this is how they say they'll work, so we could do A, B, C, D, E, and if that's not the case, then they'll blow up in your face, right? So you never want to also get into that kind of situation yourself. It's just,
Yeah.
I guess the line between friend and coworker is like really thin, but like it's really nuanced, if that's the correct term
Yes.
for it. Yeah.
No, it's true. It's very nuanced. And I highly encourage to join groups, to join parties. That's the only way you're going to make real friendships at assembly, quote unquote, assembly studios.
Yeah, that's true.
And indirectly you'll get that approval from those people.
Yeah.
You're not going to get approval from people who just want you to follow the assembly process.
Yeah, or who wants just you to finish whatever task you're given.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those people will never give you the approval that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And you're just going to go into a spiral, and it's more it's more detrimental to you than to them. And their goal is always to replace you. That's this is
harsh,
true.
but yeah,
It's harsh, but it's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because people come and go, right? That's the
Yeah.
thing. And I mean, if you're gonna have to say this harshly, as a company, they never want to be dependent on one person, in that if they leave, then you're doomed. Because then if they do that, then they're wrong. They shouldn't be doing that. It's what we always say, right? Take your vacations, because they should be able to survive without you for like whatever your vacation time is. If they can't, then
Yeah.
that's their problem, not your problem.
Absolutely. Actually, that's 100% true. If you're getting phone calls in the middle of your vacation, it's great for job security.
Oh yeah, no.
But
You look at phone calls during
Yeah.
vacation? I don't. I make sure nothing is connected at all.
I totally agree. I think I used to,
Yeah.
and I realized I was wasting, because again, it goes back to that approval mentality. I was making sure if I stay online, it's going to look good, and my supervisor is going to look, be like, good job, thanks for staying online during your vacation and contacting us whenever we needed you. Reality is, no one thanked me afterwards.
Exactly.
No one said good job. No one cared. They got what they wanted. They were happy.
Yeah.
Right? At the end of the day, who suffered? I suffered because I didn't enjoy my vacation.
Yeah. Actually, this is one
Yeah.
interesting thing my university friend taught me at the time. He's like, yeah, what he goes by this motto. He's like, I only help when I'm asked to, because when I'm not and I help out, they don't thank you.
Not at all.
I mean, obviously
Not
there's
at all.
exceptions to this, but I mean, a lot of the situations when I think back on whatever he told me, I figured out, hey, you know what? He's right. Like whenever I decided to do more things for someone, it's like, if you, in your mind you're actually hoping that they'll thank you, sometimes they don't. So make sure if you actually wanting to do more, you're gonna willingly do this without wanting compensation for it, basically, like
Yeah.
mentally or materially. Yeah.
Actually, that's a good philosophy that I think, I've kind of lived by. There's two philosophies that I've kind of lived by. One I should have mentioned earlier, but I'll mention it now. When I was supervisor, I believed in I'm only as strong as my weakest link. And what that meant to me was I need to make sure everybody on my team was happy, they were working, and they were enjoying what they were doing, right? And yes, was it like mundane tasks sometimes? Of course. But I still wanted to make sure they were enjoying it. And I was happy with the final outcome of how I ran the departments, I'll be honest, at the few studios that I've been at.
It's a good department. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Approval. Yes.
We had fun. Yes.
I got
approval.
my approval. And that's the thing, we had fun, we learned new stuff, and it really made a difference. And that made my team stronger, and it made me look good as a supervisor. And that was my philosophy always.
Yeah.
Is my team comes first. Even in front of upper management, my team came first. I will protect them.
Yeah.
And that was my goal. Because if I don't protect my team in front of upper management, then I am the weakest link. You see? And that's why that philosophy spoke to me so much.
I wish more department heads were like you, I guess. It's just that I feel like in this industry, there's a lot more leads and supervisors that are catering to upper management rather than their team. It's just from what I'm seeing. So a lot of the times, it's a breath of fresh air when you actually meet a lead or a department head that looks out for you a lot more than what the upper management wants them to do.
Absolutely. Like I was shocked to see when I became supervisor how many people told me, "Oh, you don't sign the timesheets? Well, who's going to show them who has the power?" I'm like, and I told them, I said, I'm not paying them. So I tell them to give it to the producer who's going to sign the timesheets.
Right.
It's like, to me, have they accomplished their tasks that were given to them for that day, for the week? Yeah. Yes. So as long as those are done, I don't need to sign a timesheet that tells me that they work the hours. Because my goal is for them to accomplish their tasks for the time they have.
Yeah.
Not to pay them. The producer is the one who pays them.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So my thinking, so again, I guess it's outside of the box thinking a little bit, the way I approached all this, because I always thought about how would I like to be treated at this level? How would I like to be, how would I like to, from a career growth perspective, from also just especially working in this entertainment industry.
Yeah.
It's like, we're here, we're making entertainment. Let's have fun. Why are we, hurting of ourselves by playing as if we work in Wall Street?
That's true. Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of
Game
Wall
of
Street.
Thrones. And
Game
it's
of
like,
Thrones.
you know what?
Exactly.
You're just doing preschool shows. You're just doing funny TV shows.
Exactly.
You're doing comedies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Have fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so surprising to me how much people, this is going to sound harsh, people pretended to be supervisors. And I'll be honest, I was disappointed in so many people pretending to be supervisors, but not actually understanding what it meant to be a supervisor. And this, and also, if you remember, I think our department was the only one that went to the movies twice on work time, because I fought for that, because I was like, you know what, they worked hard. We're going to the movies on the studios. All the studios are going to pay for it. And it made me really happy about that, because it just showed me that no other supervisor was willing to fight to take their team out to the movies, except for me. I was like, there you go.
Thank you.
I know it's something small, but it goes a long way.
Oh, it does. Like just having a little bit of special, what do you call it? Team building events are actually good. Well, actually, here's the thing, that kind of off topic, team building events. I wish maybe studios should have that more.
Yes.
I just don't see that as much I mean, when I was co-oping in like banks and stuff, they have like, oh, team building days. No, you go for like what was one that we went for was like Dragon Boat. It was
That's pretty
tiring,
cool.
but it was fun.
Yeah.
So I always thought like, oh,
Like your actual dragon boat, like maybe your viewers don't know dragon boat. That's like you're in a boat.
yeah,
And
yeah,
there's
yeah,
like
yeah. No,
10
the
of
actual
you
actual going to learn Dragon Ball rowing basically.
on the water.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
on the water. That was quite fun.
Yeah.
And I always like kind of in my head it's like, oh, if we do kind of those things in the studio, it'd be great. But
Yeah.
I guess we never have those. I don't know if it's a budget thing or whatever, but even like simple things like say for example escape rooms would be fun. Like just
Yeah.
maybe a little bit of time, because like yeah, we have those rap parties and stuff, so why not actual team bonding events where you're trying to do something together, team building.
Actually, there's a business idea right there. If we have any listeners, they might steal it. But
Yep.
a traveling escape room
Oh.
that we go to different studios and we build the escape room within the studio.
Ooh.
And then we,
That saves them the travel budget and everything too. so-
Exactly.
Yeah, it's actually not
There
a
you
bad
go.
idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
That's copyrighted. No one steal it. Yeah.
true. There could also be those outside those axe throwing or like
Yeah.
what anger venting rooms.
I don't know if we can bring that to the studio.
No, not bring that into the studio. No. Actually, yeah, no. I was just thinking about like I've seen those rooms where you can it's just for you to break things inside basically. Everything
Yeah.
inside is like junks. You have like computers or whatever and TVs or whatever, and you can just break them.
Yeah. Which is kind of cool, actually.
I also feel like it's
Yeah.
needed
Definitely.
in our industry sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think going to the mental health aspect, because we're talking kind of like, letting your aggression out and all
Yeah.
that. I have to say, like, we talked a little bit about the vacation thing, right?
Take your
To
vacation.
make sure, take your
Take your
vacations.
vacation.
Take your vacations. And it's so important. So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
It's like, even if you don't have vacation days built up, hey, man, book the weekend off. Book the week off.
Let's say this.
do it.
First
Yeah.
year, during your first year of working, like, did you take
Yeah.
any vacation? Because I didn't really.
No, I was scared.
I
I
yeah.
was like,
and I
I
find
need
that,
to.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's like a common thing that happens. It's just like, oh, you're so afraid of leaving because you want to look like you're useful there, and you're so afraid to miss anything.
Yeah.
And then
What's that called? FOMO?
FOMO? Yeah, but it's not for
Yeah.
your benefit though. It's just
It's not for your benefit at all.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. FOMO
Yeah.
is not. You shouldn't be using that for vacation, honestly.
No, not at all.
And I mean, what happened to me? Studio went down. I don't even get the vacation back.
It's true. You did. Yeah. Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Always take your vacation.
Always. And I think, I have a few big regrets. I missed a handful of family events, family weddings.
Oh no.
All because I was like, oh no, work is more important. Because if I don't work now, I can't build a career. And I realized all those times, all I had to do was take a couple of days off, or even a week off just to fly, go to the event and come back.
Yeah.
But nope.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I need to just put my head down and work.
I feel like that's kind of what we inherited from our parents, probably.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's like nowadays, if you look at other people, usually they're more open about taking vacation days. I think.
I think the generation right after ours.
Yeah.
But I think the newest generation, I would actually encourage them to. I found the opposite with them.
Oh, the 20s, right? Yeah.
The 20s, they're looking for, I think, approval at the wrong places, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think they need to take the vacation. And I would also add on to it, if your work hours are 9 to 5,
Yeah.
your work hours are 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Do not keep the login going after 5.
Yeah.
And start doing side hustles. Start looking at doing, it could be simple stuff. It could even doing painting class. It could be, let's say you're interested in anything.
Yeah.
You're interested in cars, maybe even
Enriching
take
your
up
life,
enriching your life.
Yeah.
Take a mechanics course.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you're interested in on the side, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Don't treat work as
Everything.
one and all.
Yeah.
As
Not
everything.
a good idea.
Not a good idea, especially in today's day and age, I would say.
It's actually
Because
hard now
yeah.
too. Ever since COVID and work from
Yeah.
home, it's because you're using the same computer. Sometimes it's just you don't
Yeah.
like. I don't even close my work messaging system,
Yeah.
even though I should. But like
Yeah.
sometimes I just keep it open, and when I'm using my computer, yeah, if someone randomly posts at 8 p.m., I might actually look at it. Whereas I really shouldn't. I should
Yeah.
have just closed it.
Shouldn't.
Yeah.
No. I don't. I bought one of those little mini computers. I log in, and the minute like 5:10 happens, I'm like, shut down, and I don't go to the computer at all. I don't log in. I don't log into my phone. So there's a few things people have to remember. If you install any software that's work related on your phone, work has the right to access that information if they need by law.
Yeah.
So don't put it on your phone.
Big
Plain
brother.
and Big brother, 100%.
It's scary to
Yeah.
think about it, but like when
Yeah.
you actually read the small fine print, sometimes it's
Absolutely.
possible, right?
Yeah.
And actually, the horror story you kind of told me about the whole messaging system at work.
Oh, 100%. They keep all records of everything. The IT guy told me this.
Oh my god.
And they told me that they keep all of it at least minimum for 10 years, but that could have changed by now. It could be even longer.
Wow.
Because data cloud is so easy now, right?
That's
so they
true.
could keep that stuff forever.
Yeah.
I would tell people, do not record anything or type anything that you don't want
Yeah.
recorded forever. Plain and
Especially if it's like some spicy chat. Don't do
Oh,
it.
100%.
Don't do it.
Do not do spicy chats at work. Go to a secret little corner somewhere or a coffee shop and maybe have a spicy chat there,
Yeah.
but don't put it in writing.
Yep.
And I think people have to realize that don't talk about it within the workplace either. You don't know the people listening and stuff like that.
Yep.
You have to remember the work environment is a work environment.
Yeah,
And you have to
professionalism comes first, I feel like.
Exactly.
That like what
Yeah.
we've been saying, the friend
Yeah.
versus coworker line is very thin.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I would like to think of it as is that it's not that you can't be both. It's just that at one time you can only be one. You can't be both at the same time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you want to kind of like, for example, I had a friend who was my supervisor who I went to the gym with all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I worked out with him. We, it was like, yeah, come on, 20 more, 2 more reps. Come on, you can do it.
Yeah.
But the minute the work time came, he was my supervisor. He told me to jump. I said, hi, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to
So-
be professional.
Exactly.
Yeah, keep your conversation at work.
Yes.
They need to be, if they need to be your boss, they need to be your boss. If they need to be your coworker, they need to be your coworker.
Yes.
Yeah, have that distinction in your mind and make sure you have it. Will keep you out of trouble in the long
Yeah.
run, for sure.
Like when we're working at work, me and you, we're very professional. We talk to each other in a professional manner. We solutions, we break it down, we write out ideas, whiteboard stuff, you name it, right? But do we go for a coffee break and spice it up? Of course.
Yeah.
If we did that podcast, that'd just be bleeps everywhere.
Yep. Please.
But that's because we've worked together for so many years.
Yeah.
We're good friends now,
Yes.
right? And so we know, unless you want to get me fired, then you can tell them what I said.
Well, the thing is, even when you were my supervisor for a few years, and at the time, I didn't talk to you about so many other things, like real feelings at work. Sometimes it's a dicey conversation because I didn't know who you were friends with. So if I had a problem
Absolutely.
with someone else that you're really good friends with, I don't know whose side you'll be on, right? So
Absolutely.
it's like a very, very, very careful line that you have to make sure you know what you're doing.
Yeah, And I kept the respect relationship with my, like, so I was supervisor, and my coworkers who I supervised, I kept that supervised relationship. Like, I was stern with people when I needed to be, and I was friends with people for a relationship, like just friendship level.
Yeah.
But it was a very professional friendship level.
Yeah.
And only after a certain point, I would say like maybe a few years, did we all open up to be more friendship level outside of work, you know, where we started playing video games, we went for escape rooms, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think initially keeping that level of professionalism is very important to really understand the dynamics. And you know, we could talk about EQ later, but EQ is a good example of that, where you need that level of EQ to see what's happening around you.
For sure.
To foreshadow also certain things that are going to happen, but without putting yourself, I guess, into situations that could be compromised.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So those are important to keep that in mind, because you never know. You never know who's really going to have your back when the time comes, who's not. So always keep it professional, especially when you're starting.
Yeah, the whole reading the atmosphere is very important, but it's like a skill that you kind of need to develop. And I would like kind of recommend at the beginning, listen more rather than say more.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we mentioned earlier in the beginning, people love to talk.
Yeah.
Just ask questions.
Like, you get a lot more information just sitting there and listening to everyone talk. You actually understand their dynamics and like how their relationship work as well.
Yeah, it's true. And I think just going back to a little bit of the side hustle stuff, I think just to add on to think about, because our industry has always been like, we mentioned this in the previous podcast, which is like,
well, assembly line, like you said, it's so easy for them to be like, hey, we don't need these group of people for this project at this time. Let's fire all of them. Like, there are studios that don't even keep them on the side. Yeah. Sometimes they just like, oh, we have a 2-3 month gap. Let's get rid of all those people and then rehire when we need them. Like, they won't even think about, hey, let's keep these 20 people here for 3 months so that we can get them on the next project. Yeah. It's just like, you're so disposable because like they see people as like a dime a dozen. Yeah. So it's important to kind of make sure that you know your own financial situations. So that's why like side hustles are important. Having side hustles, you're right, and income. Saving money. Yeah. Saving money. Very important in every industry is saving money, because you never know when there's a downturn. Yeah. I mean, especially when we don't even have like pensions and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And you know, we talked a lot about today about like EQ and understanding their approval process and all that stuff. From a personal experience right now, for example, I just left a previous job, and you know, part of me is like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, I left a good job. You know, the team I was working on was solid. You know, I was, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I'm about to start a new job. And in my mind, I'm like going, oh, shoot, I should really research this. I should figure out how to do this. Because I'm already thinking that approval process. I'm already thinking I need to get approval of the new people that I'm going to join. Yeah. And I have to reel myself back constantly, being no. When you start, there's a level of like respect amongst everybody, because the idea of starting a job, they should train you. Yeah, they should. There should be a training period. You. They should onboard you. They should ramp you up properly. If they throw stuff at you right in the beginning, I would say that's a huge warning sign. Oh, I totally agree. Huge red flag, warning sign. And if that happens, will I go home and start learning a handful of stuff for that whatever program or software? Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you have to remind yourself is if the studio can't help you, you got to help yourself. Yeah. You have to help yourself not only to survive, but then after you survive, but this goes back to what we're saying.
there's going to be moments where you have to do survival mode.
Yeah.
And when the survival mode happens, you have to be clever and smart about it.
Yeah.
But still remember to take your vacations, still remember to do your side hustles,
Yeah.
and don't rush for approvals from the wrong people.
Yes.
That's very important.
That's so true. Yeah.
And mentorship. This goes
Yeah.
to mentorship. We've seen bad mentors mentor people, and it's really scary.
That's true.
But that's a big topic in itself.
Yeah. I feel like this whole thing about
Yeah.
like you being in a leadership position, it's also like a big topic in how to properly guide people and train people. Not anyone can be a lead. There's a certain skill set that they need, and there's also things that you can learn while you're actually
Yeah.
becoming a lead. So we can leave that all to another episode. That's like a huge topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a huge topic. Yeah. I think overall, I think we hit the key aspects of what we wanted to talk about today, which is great.
Yeah.
And I think we can end it there.
Yep. Let's end it there.
That's the end of our podcast for today. I just wanted to confirm, do I have your approval? Did I do a good job?
No. No. Yes.
Okay, phew. That was close. All right.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you for listening.
Okay.
And I
See
have
you
my
guys.
approval. I can sleep well tonight. All right. That's a wrap on the episode of Pixel Pushers. Thanks for joining us as we pull back the curtain on the world of movies, TV, and video games. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow creatives. Until next time, keep creating, keep pushing pixels, and we'll see you in the next frame.